like some groups, powerful groups, are in our corner too. For calling to shows, remember that woman who followed Peter Navarro around to yell and piss him off so he couldn't address the crowd? She broke his spirit. Yeah, I've long been an advocate of like paying a guy to follow around Elon Musk with a tuba, just going boom 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 as he takes steps, and then like stop when he stops moving. I think he would break in a matter of hours. You know, I think it would not take long. Genuinely, not joking. If you can manage to do that, I would love to see. I would love to see it. 10 out of 10. Hours is being generous. Yeah, give it 5 minutes tops. Now, one thing I will say is that I've been a bit obsessed lately with Molly Jong Fast's interview series that she's been doing. And one of the things that she did is maybe a couple days ago, she had on Tim Walz to talk about just what's happening. And honestly, Tim Walz and JB Pritzker right now giving me a bit of life, giving me a little bit of hope that beyond just, us people, there are also these powerful union groups, these powerful worker groups. And also, we've got a lot of these governors. A lot of these governors are much more in tune with what they need to do to politically survive this time period and possibly, further their ambitions if they want to run for president. And they seem to be doing, they're acting accordingly, and um anyway, I thought it was interesting what he was talking about on his show, and also kind of the vision of what Tim Walz is spinning for. What happens after this? What do we look like as a country? Because that's one of the things that I have personally found very difficult to wrap my head around. Like, what are we going to look like and do after this wrecking ball has come through our democracy? Like, what does putting the pieces back together look like? And I don't know, it was just nice hearing Governor Walz address that, address that weakness in myself at least. And let's take a look, huh?
Hi, and welcome to the first episode of Fast Politics with Molly John Fast on YouTube. Tim Walz. I feel like you and I have been through it. Not together, but through the 2024 cycle.
Serendipitous in a very strange way. Like I met you, I was, like 48th out of 50 governors that people knew or something, and you had me out. We went to correspondence dinner. That was a
Yes,
big deal for
that
me.
was really fun.
Big deal, and we have watched this evolution and, the heartbreak of
Yeah.
not finishing this damn job, and I think you and I, and certainly the vice president and others knew what the result of not winning was gonna be. So,
Yeah.
it is.
So we were texting and you said, I want to talk to you about what happened at The Hague. And I actually thought you meant like a joke about how we were all going to The Hague because Dan Bongino is the deputy director of the FBI. But that's not what you meant.
No, I went to the Netherlands, and this
Yes.
is something, it was trade mission. Philips, the famous company is expanding into Minnesota. I took the
Well, so Cy Abelman, one of the things to understand about Tim Walz is that he's a liberal, so he's not great, and a lot of the positions in Minnesota that he has taken and wound up being really popular have been because he got pushed into them from farther left groups here in Minnesota, like the SA. And that being said, he's a liberal who knows how to do politics and knows what people are going to like. And people don't like this, whatever this corrupt form of politics is unfolding in our country right now. They hate that. And he seems to intuitively understand it in a way somehow a lot of Democrats don't seem to get.
Mayo Clinic with me
Yeah,
and
maybe a social democrat, though probably more like a liberal who out of necessity adopts social democrat positions.
Delta Airlines. Just we were in Rotterdam to look at sustainable aviation fuel, but I also spoke with members of parliament, and then I had the opportunity on 2 occasions. I spoke with a group of,
Wait,
leaders.
Kamala knew the risks of losing and still did what she did. The Dems are so pathetically cooked.
Oh, the democratic leadership is done, dog.
Former NATO Secretary General and folks like that and academics. And then I spoke in a big public forum in Amsterdam at the John Adams Institute. And it was several days after the vice president's Munich speech that sent shockwaves through Europe. And I said, look, the official position of the United States government was articulated in Munich. It's not the majority of opinion. So I was there on stage and answered questions both domestically, and our international relationships. It was fascinating. The hunger of Europe.
Where are the Dems? Well, a lot of them are out there, and they're trying to figure out what to do next. What kind of coordinated action they can take outside of like the democratic system, because like, for example, Bernie is barnstorming different Republican districts and putting pressure on them to try and avoid, um, you know, uh, losing a gigantic cut to Medicaid. And Alexandria Ocasio Cortez is also holding events more locally. Um, and a lot of other Dems are putting effort in to do different protests and such, but like a lot of what they need, I think, is that the Democratic leadership needs to get on the same page in order to coordinate activities. And just they're not. You've got two different factions fighting right now, and it's the Do Nothing faction, the Do Nothing Dems, led by Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, and then you've got like people who are like, "Oh no, we need to actually do stuff," and that's pretty much everyone outside of the immediate orbit of Schumer and Jeffries. A lot of the Democrats kind of in the middle are just kind of cowed into silence because they don't know which way they should go yet. They don't know which is the safest direction politically. And a lot of them are fearing Republican money entering their races via Elon Musk. And so there's a sizable amount of fear and uncertainty that has led to like a decision making paralysis. And then you have people who are actually doing something, but it's they need to be doing more. Like obviously, there needs to be more. Like we should have, each of our reps should be doing like fireside chat equivalents to explain to the public what's happening. Like that's kind of what we need. We need people to be clearly communicating what this issue is, especially in the face of like the obfuscation being played by the media right now. A lot of the mainstream media is just hopelessly contorting different stories into like weirdly positive terms. Just to give you guys an example of one that I was going to talk about later, I think it was.
Also, why is Walz running cover for Kamala? She fucked up big time, and ripping any connection to her off like a band-aid is his only hope.
It's his only hope. Yeah, here it is. It's his only hope, but also like it would alienate him from the party, and he's trying to walk a tightrope where he doesn't alienate the mainstream party while also is able to claim some of those Bernie bona fides. And that's, it remains to be seen if he can walk that rope. I don't know if he can, but that's what he's trying to do. But yeah, like a lot of the media right now is just woefully complicit with what's happening. And this is just one small example. Pentagon relaxes rules on airstrikes, raids against adversaries. And like and the Washington Post posts that along with the Trump administration has relaxed restrictions on how US commanders approve airstrikes and raids, US officials said Friday, paving the way for the US military to respond more rapidly to perceived threats. And one thing that is not at all reflected in this blurb or headline is that Well, what happens when you relax those rules and regulations? What happens when like you're framing it like it's a good thing, but what actually happens when you relax those regulations is that our airstrikes kill more innocent people. They our airstrikes inadvertently kill more elderly and children and non-combatants, you know? Like that's what happens when you relax those regulations. And instead of focusing on the actual human cost of that, the headline is just like, "Ah, yes, we'll be able to respond more rapidly. Ha ha." And like just completely ignores that like the reason these regulations are there are to reduce like civilian casualties and friendly fire incidents. Like it's crazy, dog. So yeah, media is kind of obfuscating a lot of what's happening right now.
To find that America has not lost its mind collectively.
Mhm.
The hunger of Europeans to realize that we keep our word and we can be counted on, both for security, economic, cultural ties. I think there was a hunger to make sure we were speaking very clearly that Russia was the aggressor in the Ukrainian situation. So it was fascinating. I did, and asked point blank some of these members of parliament. They're looking for, and there was a woman there, Representative Hirsch, speaking about the global feminist movement and how where is the women's march? Where are they at? And I said, look, there's a fatigue amongst, resistance, if you will, but it's expressing itself differently. And what I'm encouraged by, Molly, is that they felt the same way, that these policies are going to have real repercussions in Europe and in the United States, and there will be a political cost that someone will pay, that Trump will pay, is their hope.
I want you to first talk to me about what it's like to be a governor right now.
Yeah, it feels very similar to COVID without the direct threat, hospitals overflowing, but it feels like the uncertainty that the COVID pandemic brought is there. It feels strange to not see the federal, I never saw the Trump administration as, real good partners during COVID, but I will tell you this, and I don't know if this has been talked a lot.
Yeah, like hero exactly. What I want is for libs to just like inform people what the situation is clearly and concisely and to emphasize the actual danger and then to like I don't know make some appearances at like actual protests people are doing cuz we've got like small cafes in the middle of nowhere in like Georgia and Alabama like filling up with people who are fucking pissed off about what's happening right now to the federal government and meanwhile liberals in Washington D.C. are just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. It's insane. It's insane. We need more.
Mike Pence did about all he could. He called me
Yeah.
probably every other week. Mike Pence found masks for us, things like that. Like, he was trying to make it work, but he kinda was, like, on the sly. He couldn't do it from, and it feels like right now
Oh, I bet he's on the sly. I bet Mike Pence is on the sly all the time.
there's no one to turn to. There is
Yeah.
no, and it's just so frustrating. Just for example, the pettiness of them. One of the first things that they defunded was Lutheran Social Services, and it's based in Minnesota from my church, the ELCA, and they're a great social service organizations, and one of the things they
No, he's not pro Mike Pence. He's just pointing out that when Trump was in office last time, Mike Pence, the vice president, at least tried to help out during COVID, which, was a big deal.
do is they legally resettle refugees,
Saved lives.
who are legally here, and we get them settled. They cut off funding and threw them into disarray, and they had to lay off people. So as a governor, I'm trying to figure out, can I backfill that? How do I do it? And then last week, he went after the American Association of Geographers, which of course we know is where all the spending in the government is happening, and it's where all the cabal to
Yeah.
overthrow democracy is happening amongst geographers. He went
Right.
after because it's an organization that I associate with. So as a governor, personally on this is just the pettiness of this, but the everyday fight, like what happens to Medicaid, what happens to our road funding, what happens Minnesota is ahead of schedule. Xcel Energy is 5 years ahead of our 2040 goal on 100% clean energy. We are there. We're on the precipice of this. Now a lot of those investments are under attack. So I guess as a governor, you're trying to triage the situation as it stands. You're trying to craft a budget a normal budget in an environment where there's just such great uncertainty about what he does and what it means to our people.
Do you think that's specific to you because you ran for president against him, or do you think he's doing that?
No, he's doing that to everybody. It's just that the thing
Okay,
that I think is scary about this is, though, is they find the time to be specific enough. Who the hell
right,
was gonna try and cut funding to the American Association of Geographers? Although, in your piece, you
Well, you have no idea what this means. Basically, Donald Trump is slashing programs and things out of spite to get petty revenge on people and orgs that he perceived as wronging him. It's one of the only reasons why you would target cuts towards a, social services outfit in Minnesota. There's not really a reason you would prioritize that other than spite.
wrote, the language around the Gulf of Mexico is more than just buffoonery. There's the nationalism, there's all that. They're better organized. But
right,
they came after Lutheran Social Services in the first week. Like, who in God's name knows? It's a small social service organization funded, on a progressive Lutheran branch, and it happens to be mine. I
right.
think I'm the only governor that's a Lutheran. I was one of, like, 5 members of Congress, which I think might be the problem, just so you know. A few more Lutheran, just making the case.
He's the scary part is here, guys. He's not wrong. Like, the current administration that is in power right now is run by Christian nationalists, but like very specific kinds of Christian nationalists. You've got like a strange alliance of what I'll title the conservative churches, and then anything that is, regarded as progressive church is kind of like under attack by them right now. Yeah, you've got your trad cath converts, you've got your evangelical end times apocalypse preachers, you got all kinds of folks wrapped up in this conservative movement. But you've got like Episcopalians who accept LGBTQ people, and like progressive aid organizations run out of Lutheran churches, and like um there's a non-zero chance that like Tim Walz is right, and they could be targeting like what they view as the wrong kind of Christians. It would not be unprecedented in history for that to happen.
So,
When we talk through this and we talk about what it looks like, the sort of federalist, I mean, you guys have a lot more power. Like, one of the things that I always fault Democrats for is that, or at least looked at Republican, during Biden's administration, we saw Texas really and Florida really just be like, we're doing our own thing.
yes.
Now, and Democrats can do that to a certain extent, right? I mean, they may be
Yes.
punished. Yeah. So talk us through that.
Yes, and look, I hear the thing out there is that when we get back, which we will, we'll fight. I'll tell you what people are gonna expect is they're not gonna expect us to tinkle around the edge with the ACA, they're gonna expect universal health care.
Fuck
And
yeah, dog! Let's go! That's some good analysis right there. That's some good analysis right there. Because if we're going to go through this time of turmoil and shit and have to slog through it for miles on our death march to the hopefully better world, we need to be rewarded at the end of that. We need to make a win at the end of that. If we have to like slog through this battle and make it to the end, we deserve a little recompense for that effort. Like Medicare for all, like housing for all. Like, we're going to need to fundamentally restructure some things at the end of this. Like, we need to like get an amendment through to bar money from politics. Have publicly funded elections. That's genuinely what we need to be doing now. If we must fight in this way, if we must mobilize in this way, let our victory resound and be felt from here on after. Like, you know what? If we got to fight, we're going to throw down, and we're going to throw those companies down so hard that we crack the entire healthcare industry. We're going to throw them down so hard that their monopolies will never be able to rise again. We're going to play for keeps if they would force an existential crisis upon us. And I think we'll win. I think we'll win because our enemies are stupid and have allowed us to begin mobilizing too soon. But that relies on each and every one of us doing our part.
If there's a lesson here, I always said this, we had a one vote majority.
Yeah, we're gonna get free school lunch. We're gonna get free school breakfast. We're gonna get free after school activity dinners. We are going to eliminate children going hungry in this country.
In Minnesota, when we moved clean
That better
energy,
be
we
waiting
moved
for us at the end of
reproductive
this.
rights, we moved a whole slew of progressive, very popular, including things around guns and gun safety, very popular things. We moved it with a one vote majority. And people ask, well, what do you call a one vote majority? A majority. Simple as that. These guys have
Simple
learned that
as.
lesson, and governors have that ability. I'm in Europe trying to foster what I can on the trade. Now, look, if they cut our funding, it's $2 billion, you
Right.
know, out of a roughly $30 billion state budget. So it is
Right.
a massive hole that we can't fill alone, but
Right.
there are things that we can do. There are things that we can push back on. There are things that we can separate. Now, the irony of this is Republicans being all about states' rights until they're not about states' rights.
Right. Of course.
You're still
Well,
establishing
because they're only about states' rights to discriminate against black and gay people and, not non-white people.
ourselves, we're sub-federal level of government, but we have a lot of autonomy. Like, I can be invited to the Netherlands to speak, and I said this, Molly, that I'm a rule follower that used to be politics ends at water's edge, means
Right.
with a unified voice to that. I recognize that the position right now, official position of the federal government is that we're not gonna support Ukraine. That's not the
Right.
majority position of Americans, and you can walk that line, and I
Right.
think that's what we need to do more of. We need to push back, and again, I hope everybody and I hope Republicans know this, you are teaching us a lot of what happens when we get back and control these,
Yep.
that we need to deliver for people because and that's their downfall in this. Where are they delivering for people other than just angst and anger and taking it out on immigrants or whatever?
That's the thing. You have to give your base. It's not enough to just give them anger and like outrage bait and like cultural victories that cost you nothing. People need material benefit, and they're not going to get a single drop of that from the Trump administration because that's all going directly to billionaires.
No egg prices down. Now you
Right.
got folks that lost their jobs. Now you've got confusion with our neighbors. So I have to tell you, a saying I always say,
He's so much better at messaging, Hero, but also like maybe that's why they shut him up. They didn't want him to upstage Kamala Harris. Like he couldn't be going around on the campaign trail like promising Medicare for all if they won because like they didn't want to allow that promise to stand. Ugh. I feel like they did him dirty.
said was is you lead with good policy and good politics will follow that. And the inverse of that is true. Bad policy will lead to bad politics. And I think Democrats got caught in the wilderness that our policies are popular, but for whatever reason, we didn't articulate it in a way that turned to good politics.
So I have a theory of the case that I have shared with Biden world, and they're very mad at me. That the thing they did wrong was this cautiousness, this fearfulness about interfacing with media, social media, mainstream media. If it's scary, shut it down. If it's too popular, like calling someone weird, shut it down. Talk to me.
Yeah, and look, it far be it from me to critique because I own this, that it was my responsibility to help get this thing won. And so I'll take my shortcomings on this, but I do think there is a cautiousness around that.
Yeah.
I think that we should be more willing to speak to people where they're at. I don't think we should be so worried about are we putting ourselves out there and going to be asked hard questions? We should be asked hard questions.
Right.
And then we should lead and talk about the things that make a difference in people's lives. And I think people did not know how much better our economy was because they weren't
Right.
feeling it. I think
Well, they weren't feeling it, right? But also if they're not feeling it, then like the economy's not better, right? Like if you're just saying the economy's better in some abstract way, like that doesn't help people feel that it's better. The point of it being better would be that they feel it, right? Um and also like a lot of policies that the Democrats have done that are popular, like yeah, they are popular, but like they're the watered down version of things that people actually wanted, you know? Like get a minimum wage increase, then we'll start talking, you know? Like they backed off on so many of the things they promised.
We left a void that they're gonna fill, and you wrote about this, and you know this, Donald Trump's ability and, I was like they had JD Vance on every talk show, and most of the time I was like, "Oh my god, that's insane," but it was something, and people were
Hey,
seeing it,
Charlie,
and they were
How
hearing
many
it,
$25
dimps
super
do we
chat.
and
hear
I think
taking
for
responsibility for the loss like that? Fucking good dude.
Yeah, and like I don't know. I don't think Kamala Harris is ever going to like admit any wrongdoing on her part because she's just going to gear up and run for governor of California. But like, I do I do think that Tim Walz can overcome like the loser VP pick stigma. I think he has an opportunity here in the next year or two to be like the straight shooter governor who like people have enough name recognition around to be able to have another shot to run as an actual president if he wanted to. I think a lot of people really appreciate it, and his manner of speech and speaking and relatability. I keep going back to like the week prior to the election when he went and talked to like a bunch of Iowa like working class folk. I don't know if you guys remember, or maybe it was Ohio. Um, dude resonated with those workers. It was truly impressive to watch him interact with them, and I think that if he channeled that along with a general call to support unions and push back corporate power, I think he could be an FDR. I think he could be an FDR figure. You know, someone who's willing to drop a new deal on us. It was Pennsylvania. Thank you, Harold. Um, I think he has that potential. I personally I think that there are a couple others I would put before him, but he's definitely like in my top 5 of people who could run for president in 2025 or 2028, my bad. Um yeah, he was really impressive. He like asked about a specific crop one of the farmers was growing. It was incredible. But anyway,
us to get out there. Now, here's my theory on this too,
And by the
President
way, every single show, all the time. Like
yeah.
Oh,
not
no,
they have you have to flood the zone because people don't it's
that's a
not
line I
9
wrote with you.
interviews, it's 900.
Listen, it's not linear, and you don't have to get a 10 out of 10 on every interview you do to be out
Right.
there making points, especially if you believe in it. Now, the thing that I'm hopeful
Yeah.
about, just to tell you in this, is because I'm hearing it. Where are the Democrats? Where's the leadership? Where's the resistance? Where's all of this? President Obama made
Right.
me in 2009 when he took office. He had about a 70% approval rating, far higher than this. He had the House
Right.
and the Senate. There was no charismatic resistance. It was Boehner and Mitch McConnell. But you know what it was, and I experienced this. By the summer of 2010, the town halls, the stuff you're seeing in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, it's organic, and it was people. And the Republican leadership followed this. Now, I'm not gonna say all of that was organic. It was funded. It was thoughtful. There were groups,
AstroTurfed. Yeah.
but a lot of it was relatively organic, and these are happening now in real time, and I think Democratic leadership needs to recognize that, seize upon it. If these town halls and public angst is there, at least get out there and throw some gas on it and get
Yeah.
people gassed up. Give them
Right? Like this guy gets it. Right? Like yeah, guys, you as politicians, you should be going out there and like throwing gasoline on the flames of our passion. Like you guys need to be doing shit.
Conflict angst is there, at least get out there and throw some gas on it and get
Yeah.
people gassed up, give them something to reason, and then we're gonna have to recognize people want to see results, and I think
Mhm.
our biggest strength right now is showing them their lack of results, but I hope somebody's thinking this through. What do results look like when we say we take the House back? What's that gonna look like? I don't think over the last couple of years, no matter all the great work that I believe the Biden administration did, I don't think it translated much into the mainstream consciousness, and it may
Nope.
be your point on this is we should have just been flooding the zone 100% of the time. I'm an unab
Honestly, I don't understand why presidents stopped doing fireside chats. Obviously, I wouldn't watch any of the ones Trump does, but like, because they'd be incoherent. But like, if Biden had done fireside chats that were like clean, you could do like a Biden podcast, just be like, "Hello, everyone," and then you just like edit out different parts of his speech, make it seem like more smooth. You could do that. Yeah, why did we stop doing the FDR fireside chat? I think it's very useful to communicate to people what's going on. Also, you're president, so anything you do in your fireside chat instantly becomes national news. You know?
unabashed believer in a shadow government. We don't have the
Right.
here to do it, but I think we should be doing that.
Well, and I also think that if people are not seeing like what the Biden administration did, and God love them, they were not, they came in during a pandemic, but what they did was they didn't do many interviews the first 2 years. They were really
Charlie, thank you for the
quiet
$5
God may
and
be
super
they
on
were
his
like
throne, but
aggressive
Waltz is
against.
in his taxi. Time to get crazy.
chat.
Rock on gesture. Taxi.
They did mod Tim Walz into Crazy Taxi. That's true. They did do that.
The mainstream media, which in itself, it's fine. I mean, like, my husband is a real liberal and he's always like, the mainstream media was, did this wrong and that wrong. And okay, sure. I'm not going to, I certainly have a horse in this race. So, okay. But the thing is, like, when you think about Donald Trump is talking to the media all the time. And the 4 years he was
Yeah, no, Joe Biden, it became very clear, was not capable of doing a fireside chat podcast. Otherwise, they probably would have done that, right?
out of office, he had every journalist in the world down to Mar-a-Lago. I mean, people who hated him, people who he
I think that's
sued.
a model. I think there is a model there, Molly. And look, I know my shortcomings. I own what I own. I don't know if the media, the legacy media did all that they could have, but the lesson here is again, so not engaging them or criticizing them. That old adage, don't fight people who buy their ink in 50-gallon drums. And so engage on that landscape and be out there. So I do think that's there. I do think articulating things that improve people's lives. I always said this. I'm kind of at heart, and I had the advantage of this growing up when I did, strictly squarely middle class people, where you could kind
Yeah, AOC does a good job of kind of doing fireside chat like things. Like I always appreciate when she gives a detailed breakdown of different goings on in the Senate. Um, it's much appreciated, but we need like more consistency, I think, in that regard. And maybe that's just difficult for a senator to do. I imagine it would be, or a president. I imagine it would be as well.
of ignore the politics, if you
Yeah.
will, instead of getting engaged the way you should. And I think right now, for us to make the case, I was kind of agnostic. Somebody said, "Well, you're a Democrat. How'd you get that?" I said, "I didn't go to the Democrats. They came to me. When my
Right.
dad died, there was Social Security. I love my public school. When I applied for a Pell Grant, I got it. So all of a sudden now I'm like, well, hell, these are the people who are after me. And how in God's name did the party of the working class lose the working class voters to this billionaire who's clueless? And again, I wish there was
I'm so glad someone, at the very least, someone in the Democratic Party is ringing that bell and being like, "Yeah, guys, why we're the party of the working class, and we lost to this fucking ding dong who doesn't know how anything works."
some grand scheme amongst these guys. This is all about tax cuts. And
Right.
damn, if we didn't give them every other side issue, again, I will kick myself that got sucked in. I bet you I spent 3 or 4 days, maybe longer, not clowning, but just hammering them over the eating dogs and cats because it was so ridiculous, and I took that hook, line, and sinker. We were talking about immigration at a critical part of the campaign, and it was hurtful, and it pissed me off, and I was standing there to defend people, and it didn't do a damn bit of good electorally.
See,
Mhm.
I love that you're beating yourself up about this because I too am beating myself up over the 2024 election cycle and all the things I got wrong.
Well,
So,
it's not the
but you
woe is me, it's like, we can't afford
no,
to get this wrong, and
no,
I'm not a pundit, I can only approach it from my perspective, and I think went around the country.
I fucking love that he's owning these mistakes. I think contrary to popular belief, I think like the media take on this is that like, you never admit to making a mistake. I like when my politicians admit to like these types of mistakes because it indicates that they understand what went wrong and a commitment to improving. You acknowledge what you did wrong and then talk about how you could do it differently in the future to get it right. That's good. That's actually good. You want that in a politician, you know?
Enough, and here look, I'm way more popular than Trump here, not
yeah,
because they necessarily love me, it's because people are getting free lunch, and it's
yeah.
because
Yep.
family and medical leave is coming, and if I have more
Yeah, yeah, he's 100% right. Like people like Tim Walz in Minnesota because he's feeding their children breakfasts. That's why people like him. It's because he's actually delivered for us.
people insured in healthcare, and those are things like, "Oh, I don't know if I like Walls or not," but I don't really have anything to, gripe about because 'cause they're delivering on these policies, and I think that's the thing that I am most focused on, and I would say this is where governors hold the key. Deliver against the onslaught of Trump, not just resisting him, but deliver policies that he can't deliver that are popular. And I would say that's why you lean into this gun stuff. Seriously, we're having conversations again on this issue of bathrooms when we can't keep guns out of our schools.
I just want to get back though to what I think you did wrong because I actually don't think that's what you did wrong.
Well, it was a
I
lot.
actually
We don't have time to cover all the things that
no, but honestly, the one thing I'm just saying this from you to me as friends who are now right now recording this is that I actually think what they did wrong with you was not let you do enough. Like just you should have
No,
been
I
out there
appreciate
all
But
the
that.
time.
it's good to hear this from Molly Jean Fast because I believe she's also the journalist doing the interviewing here is also considering running against Jerry Nadler. And I think she'd be a good person to beat him. I think she might have the juice, to be honest with you guys.
24/7 because the thing is like
That would have come with its own problems, I would say, but no, but
but who
I think
cares? I mean,
yeah, that's
if we
kinda where
learn
I'm at.
anything from Trump or JD Vance, it's that it's much better to, say something, whatever, like stupid about the Vietnam War and keep going,
Yeah,
stupid, or like say,
yeah. I
obviously,
would say the same is true of the vice president because I think what America started
100%.
to see and didn't know, like, somehow she was kind of quiet or whatever. She is dynamic, and she had this sense of charisma and presence,
Yes.
and
Yes.
especially amongst young people, where it was a calming presence. And I said this, Molly, that I just wish they would have told the story more. I watched it in real time. We were down in, like, Savannah, Georgia, outside of Savannah, Georgia, in a rural school, and the school was meeting us there, and we went in, and they had the band playing, and the cheerleaders were there, and the football players were there, and we were doing one of these little things where it's the meet and greet type of thing, and the vice president just casually mentions she was a band kid, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god."
Right.
Like, the humanizing part of that, and especially as a teacher
Yeah.
and as a parent of kids who were around, played the piano or whatever, it was a big deal, and I don't think America knew that.
And the thing
All right, all right. Go easy up, Tim. Okay, like I don't know that if we knew that Kamala Harris was a band kid, it would have made that much of a difference for us. Frankly, um, you were cooking before. Now we're kind of getting some bumpy territory here. But yeah, she should have talked like a relatable human instead of a corporate bot. Like and fundamentally, we just needed leftist policy. We needed actual policy that would have improved people's lives, and we didn't get it.
She had a calming presence all right. calming voters into staying asleep and home.
True, Sake Tanuki. True. Unfortunately, too true. Hey,
Thing is,
Cannabis
it
Brex.
just can't be 10 interviews. It has to be 1,000. It can't be. It just has to be because the
The vice
media
president has immense energy.
immense.
Her work ethic, her focus. Like she would tell me if I would say something, she's like, "Get off social media. You know, read this." So it was
Oh,
she had immense
It's his nice
focus,
nature.
a ton of
Yeah, I mean, I think it speaks more to their interpersonal connection, not necessarily to how voters connected with her.
energy,
yeah.
and as I said, her preparation was something to behold. Whatever you threw at her, she could do. Now look,
Yeah.
retrospect, hindsight's 2020 or whatever, but I do think we have to watch what Trump did and learn from this, and I think that's where the Democrat public is screaming, "Where is everybody?"
Come on my show. Come on my show. You're trying to go on like podcasts or whatever. Come on Democratic shows. I don't know. Answer questions. Be a person. They do a conservative podcast circuit. Do the leftist podcast circuit. I'd love to have you on, Tim Walz. We can talk about ice fishing and stuff. I don't know that much about ice fishing. I just picked a random Minnesotan activity. Yeah, get in the boat, Gov. Exactly. I just think I just think that there's a lot of reasons right now to be particularly hopeful, because I think there are people striving, and I read an article about this the other day. Can't remember where, but it was just about how the state attorneys general across 23 Democratic states have been meeting for the past year, preparing for where we are right now. And that's why so many of these legal challenges have been manifesting so quickly. And part of what's going on right now is that there's kind of this not legislative, courtroom blitz going on. They're filing a lot of lawsuits, and the Trump administration doesn't have the bandwidth to deal with all of them at once, and it's overwhelming them in that capacity, and that's good. It's good that that is happening, because it means they are less coordinated. They're putting things on the record that they probably don't want to be putting on the record, and then they have to be scrambling in order to make sure they're comporting with what they said on the record. It's a whole thing, right? There's a scrambling. And part of where we're at is that we have state attorneys general coordinating on our behalfs. We have governors stepping up to fight for us. We have different unions and work organizations and nonprofits that are standing up and helping to file these lawsuits or prepping different actions in solidarity, like protests and such. We've got a lot going on, and then we've got all of the things that are just grassroots being driven by folks like us. And with time, we will win over the Democratic leadership, and they will be forced to bend the knee to us, because they will have to, or they'll be destroyed, essentially. Is it possible that they focused in what to do if Trump won? They didn't focus enough on winning / doing anything. Well, the state attorneys general are, they're not in charge of like how the campaigns run. They're just in charge of coming up with contingencies, and it's a good goddamn thing that they did. Because last time Donald Trump came into office, they all got caught with their pants down. They did not let that happen this time. Kingsport Cal, I have not. I got this at thrift store like years ago. Also just like kind of an olive drab jacket. It's not really a military jacket. We will win it over faster if more people join the local Dems. True! Join your local Dems. Join your local DSA. Get involved so that we can escalate this pressure on Democrats internally. Do the things. Use !organize in chat to figure out how you can get involved. We got protests happening with Tesla Takedown. We've got protests happening with Indivisible all across the country. If you can't find one close to you, you can make your own in either of those two categories. And we've also got your 5calls.org duties every day. Make one call to each of your elected representatives so that they know what you want them to be doing. It adds up and it does matter. Keep making those calls. They are terrified right now of being held responsible for, doing things. So keep doing it until they do the things. And also, please join your DSA. Find your local DSA chapter, join it, get involved, start making decisions, start showing up at protests, etc. Because we need people who are actively going to do stuff if we want to win. And that relies on each of us doing our part. Each of us doing our part. You too can do a socialism instead of being mad at your phone, doom scrolling. Exactly. Exactly. You got it. And if you need help navigating DSA, please get in contact with GamerG over on our Discord. And if you need help joining your local Dems, contact Dragonfly on the Discord. Dragonfly would love to help you find your local Dems and get involved. Let's get to work. We got so much to do.